to discuss taxes, estate planning, and we're going to talk about the State of the Union as it relates to us as investors and how we can take advantage of what was discussed. So that's going to be at the end. Miss Gaddis is probably going to make an appearance. Miss Pegler and I will kick things off to get started. Um, Miss Pegler, if you could unmute your mic, we will get started.
My name is Diana Pegler, and I am with ELE Pegler LLC. We prepare income tax returns and do bookkeeping. A couple of tax law changes that happened with the big, beautiful bill that was signed in July of 2025 is the interest deduction allowed for vehicles that are purchased beginning January 1 through December 31st of 2028. So for the next 4 years, you'll be eligible to deduct interest on your car loan. There's a couple of rules associated with it. It has to be a new vehicle. It has to be secured by a first lien or a first time loan on that vehicle, and it has to be for personal use. The big caveat on this is that not only does the vehicle have to be new, it has to be assembled in the United States. And how you prove that, I can't even begin to tell you, but that is how the rule is stated. You can deduct up to $10,000 a year on this vehicle loan interest, and it begins phasing out depending on what your filing status is. If you're single or married filing joint, it will begin to phase out. For single people, it's $100,000. For married filing joint, it's $200,000. So that's something new, but it's not really new because in 1986, you could deduct interest on a car loan. Another item, energy efficient.
Hold on a
Oh,
second.
sure.
Before you just roll your boat. Let's go back. So, all right. So, with a car loan, you can
Hmm.
now possibly deduct a car loan,
The
and the
interest.
criteria is the interest on the car loan, and the
Mhm.
criteria is it needs to be assembled in the United States of America.
Correct.
And the dealership should probably be able to tell you whether the car was assembled
Hmm.
here or whether it was assembled someplace else. So that's one of the things you want to ask the dealer. Now, talk about you said you can do it, but it phases out. So go back over
Yes,
the phase out part of it.
sure.
Go over that once more. What
Okay.
yes, when does it phase out? At what income levels?
For a single person, $100,000, it begins to phase out. If you are married filing joint, $200,000. It begins to phase out the credit. And again, the maximum deduction in any given tax year is $10,000. There is information I would suggest to people if you did purchase a vehicle that fits this criteria, bring your purchase agreement to your income tax appointment because there's additional information that the preparer needs to get from the purchase agreement. Vehicle number, for one,
Right. VIN number. So
VIN number.
all right. So just to explain, Miss Pegler is a part of ELE Pegler. Her and I partnered over 9 years ago to do ELE Pegler. She does tax returns. She does bookkeeping. Um, Her main thing is to make sure that you're financially sound. If you have a small business, she can definitely help you with the bookkeeping services. If you have an individual tax return, you just one of those people who just didn't file the last few years because you just didn't get around to it. Uh, Give the office a call and talk to Miss Pegler. Okay, Miss Pegler, I didn't mean to stop you, but I
Oh, that's
did
okay.
mean to give the explanation.
Well, thank you. Another credit that you may be able to take advantage of is the energy tax credit. If you've done home improvements, insulation specifically, and other energy efficient type items, for example, hot water tank, energy efficient furnace, as long as you've done it by the end of tax year 2025, which is December 31st, you could be eligible for a credit. Again, whoever you are making these purchases through, they should be able to tell you if it qualifies for an energy efficient credit. And the most exciting tax change that's happened is for those persons who are age 65 and older, you have what they call a senior bonus. And that means, regardless of whether you take the standard deduction or you itemize, you would be eligible for this credit. Once again, it begins to phase out depending on your income level. And it is $6,000. That's exciting. I have had several clients already this year, and they are elated. Most of them, they do not owe. However, this credit is going to sunset or expire at the end of the tax year 2008. So you actually are getting four
Oh, not
years.
2008, 28.
28, sorry. So you have 2025, 26, 27, and 28. It can be extended if Congress so chooses. However, if it doesn't, whatever your financial situation was prior to being able to take advantage of this credit, you'll probably go back to that. So, this is where income tax planning comes into play. So, the closer you get to this credit expiring, you might want to talk to your tax professional and do some tax planning so that you're not in the same situation uh, as you were before this credit came into existence.
Was that credit $6,500?
$6,000 per person. For a single person, it begins to phase out at $75,000. And for married filing joint, it begins to phase out at $150,000.
Now she's talking about income, guys. If your income is 65,000 or married, 150,000, but it's income, not purchases, income.
Correct.
All
Correct.
right.
And the last one I'll mention is the Trump savings account. And that's for newborns, basically. And the contribution that you make to that account cannot be withdrawn without penalty until the child has attained the age of 18. And I'll just leave it at that.
I'll add to that a little bit. Um, the accounts, if your child was born in 2025 through 2028, right, Ms. Pegler?
That is correct.
Okay. 2025 through 2028, then they would get the Trump account, who was funded by Michael Dell and his wife. They gave $6.2 billion dollars to make it possible for every child born during that time period to get an account. It starts with $1,000 and you can add to it. And it's going to be based on index of the market. So if the market continues to do well, they project that if you add to it and you pay the same amount you would pay for a car payment, if you add to it, you value your car, your grandchild, the same as you value a car, and spend the same money on them, it will have well over $100,000 in the account by the time they reach the attained age, as Ms. Pegler said, of 18. So it's exciting because kids are going to turn 18 and they're not going to have any money. So you might as well sign up for the account. There's a reason not to sign up for this account. And that's a Trump account. So you go to trump.org, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Is it .gov or
I think it's
org?
.org. I'll confirm it.
Yeah, trump.org. You look that. Miss Sanders, look it up while we're talking.
Okay.
That's your plug. Yeah. All right, Miss Pegler, you had a few other things. You had something else. Talk about tips and wages and overtime.
Oh boy. I will just say that they are eligible. The Internal Revenue Service has not given us as thorough a guidance as to how to determine um, overtime. And it just depends on how the employer reports it, whether or not the tax professional can be able to figure it out. We haven't been given any guidance as to whether it's going to be on the W-2 and broken out. I know for tax year 2025, it is not broken out. So there is no way for your tax professional to know what's going on relative to overtime. With regard, same situation with tips. It's a difficult situation to manage, but what I will say is that they are eligible deductions, and it's up to your tax professional to try and sort it out to the best of their ability and do their due diligence.
Okay. All right. So, Miss Pegler, what else would you like to add?
Um, just to remind people how important tax planning is and not waiting until the calendar year is done before you make adjustments. Just recognize that when you have life changes, it will possibly impact your tax return. And that's your clue that maybe some planning needs to be done. Call your tax professional and have that discussion.
Give us
If
an example of a life change, Miss Pegler.
you get married, you have a child, those are the two main factors. Sometimes, if you buy a house, you may be eligible to itemize. It just depends. But these are some of the triggers for talking to your tax professional about how
What
it
if you
may or may
plan
not impact.
What if you plan to donate to charity, a 501c3 type charity?
Mhm. You can donate up to 60% of your income to charity.
Repeat that for us.
You can donate to a charity. It must be a 501c3, and you can't give any more than 60% of your income to that
Okay.
charity or charities.
All right. So let's just say you make $100,000 a year.
Hmm.
So 60% of $100,000 is $60,000. So you're
Hmm.
saying if I gave 60% of my income, $60,000 of that income, I get a dollar for dollar write off for that?
Hmm. Hmm. 60%.
Okay.
That's it, no more. And that's why they have percentages. That's the base percentage. The
Got
other
it.
thing that I would mention is required minimum distribution. That's very important. Those persons who are eligible to take their required minimum distribution, just remember that you can also donate some of those funds to charity, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. What does that mean for you? It means that you're reducing your taxable income. And it's a good thing to do. You can donate up to $100,000 a year. And if you're married filing joint, that means each person can donate up to $100,000 a year from their required minimum distribution to a 501c3 organization.
And not a shameless plug, but a plug nonetheless. There is an ELE Cares Foundation where we help individuals, young people, learn more about finance and also do internships and scholarships. So just keep that in mind that ELE Cares has a 501c3. We can help you out. All right.
Ms.
Miss
Beckler,
Sanders, just things in the chat. Yes.
yeah, I was going to say, Ms. Beckler, before you move on, can we get clarity about that $6,000 credit? They want to know, is the credit available for retirees? So can you give us clarity
No.
on that?
Well, the key is your age. You must be 65 years of age and attain that age in tax calendar year 2025. Doesn't matter if it was the beginning, middle, or end of 2025, as long as you are the age 65, you are eligible. Now, again, I mentioned the phase out incomes, whether or not you're single or married filing joint. But if you're age 65, you are eligible for that senior bonus.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hmm.
Is that it? That it, Miss Sanders? Anything else that we need to have her go over?
Yep, I believe that is it.
All right, Miss Pegler, any parting
Thank
words
you.
you want to give us?
Um, Give us a call at 248-356-6555 with any of your income tax questions. We're happy to not only address those questions, but we're happy to process your return as well.
Can you put that in the chat, Miss Sanders? The phone number for the office.
Absolutely.
All right. Ms. Pegler, thank you so much
You're
for giving
welcome.
us that information and keeping us. You know what, Ms. Pegler, I want you to tell them one more thing before you go.
What's that?
What's a mock return?
A mock return is something like the tax planning that I mentioned. There's a connection there. And what that does is we can do married filing joint, married filing separate. We can do different scenarios so that you get a better feel for where you're going to be tax wise for the next calendar year.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Pegler. Truly
You're
appreciate you taking
you're
the time
welcome.
tonight.
All right,
All
thank you.
right. All right. All right. So it's so important that you have all your financial affairs in order. And the challenge with that is it's a moving target. So things keep moving. They don't stay the same. They're not stagnant. They don't stay the same. It's just like this team behind me. You know, Florida State used to be the king of the world. Then it was Michigan. And you can't see it was a U this year. Miami had a great year. And then Alabama's always constantly in the game. So you've got to just kind of change with the times. You can't say I'm stuck. And that's kind of how that works. And the same for taxes. Now, the next topic we're going to talk about is a topic that is challenging to a lot of people in terms of their understanding. I'm going to bring on Walter Sturgill, Attorney Sturgill, and Attorney Sturgill is going to talk to us about estate planning, wills and trust, wills. He's going to talk about probate, just to kind of give you an idea, because I always want to talk about that because a lot of people die without their affairs in order. Powers of attorney, financial and medical. We never know when a medical event's going to happen, and if you don't have a power of attorney medical in place, your family can come to the hospital. You can be 20 people strong, but if nobody has a power of attorney, then the hospital has to make a decision as to what to do regarding your care, not your family member. Attorney Sturgill, good evening.
Evening, everyone. Thank you for having me, Mr. Liddell. And I'm just happy to be here today to be able to share with everybody. I was making some notes from Ms. Pegler because I need to take advantage of probably all of those.
Oh, the tax return? Absolutely. We all need to save money.
The savings account for the children, all that.
That's
So
right. That's right. You got one that was born in 2025.
exactly. So I qualify, or he
You
qualifies.
qualify. He qualifies.
So I like to make things personal and very uh, just really poignant to what individuals in the room are dealing with, right? So I like to start off with a story of my own of what I'm dealing with, right? And how that incorporates into estate planning and the things that I've been incorporating in my own family. Uh, Personal story, as of recently, my father was in the hospital since Christmas time, just before Christmas, right? He's in the hospital, he went to rehab, found out he needs to have heart surgery. In that instance, he's still competent. He's still able to make his own decisions, but he's not in the best mind state in terms of going out and getting all the information. So finding out about doctors, asking all the questions because he's still in a, I don't want to say frail state. Like that is a good position to say, a frail state, right? So when our loved ones are in the hospital and they are in a compromised state, they're not always thinking clearly enough to ask all of the right questions and even to remember the answers that they are receiving to communicate it to the family members that need to know, right? So in that particular instance, I had to get a document called a patient advocate designation or something called a healthcare power of attorney. That way, I can receive information from doctors. I can receive information from the insurance company, and then even the doctor that was supposedly performing the heart surgery. I can get information from him as well. I was having issues initially prior to having that document, receiving information from the insurance company. The insurance company denied his surgery initially, and I was not able to advocate on his behalf because I did not have this specific document. Now, I am my father's only child, and he's not married. So even with that being the fact, I could not access his information because healthcare information is the most coveted information there is. It's the most heavily regulated information without having proper powers. Why did I bring that up? Two reasons. One, had my father been incapacitated and could not speak on his behalf or sign a documentation to give me power, I would have been in a frantic state, whereas I would have to appeal to the court in order to have power to address those particular issues. Now, that's a huge disadvantage versus being able to speak immediately on someone's behalf. Why? If your loved one is in a compromised state, more than likely there needs to be some type of emergency surgery or something that's going to be very imminent to their health. As you know, as well as I know, if you live in Wayne County, the court isn't the fastest court there is, right? They have one of the largest, they have the largest docket in Michigan. So it is not the fastest process to be able to get in there, get the documentation and the power you need to act on behalf of your family, your loved ones, right? So I want to bring that story to the forefront because a lot of individuals may be in here or you know someone that's dealing with aging parents that you have to have these documents in place in order to be prepared to act quickly and in their best interest when they need it. All right. So, um, Mr. Liddell, did you have a question? I didn't know if you.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I wanted to just say to this. Now he talked about aging parents or aging people, and I remember when I first met Attorney Stargell, he mentioned the fact that he used to drive by my office when he was in high school. So he let me know that I'm his senior. So senior doesn't mean way older; it just means older. It's not just for your parents; it's also for your children. Many of your kids go off to college and they're away from you, and if they end up in a situation where they're in a hospital, everything that Attorney Sargent just talked about applies to your children as well. So it applies to any loved one having the ability to speak on behalf, even if it's on vacation, leaving the country. A lot of people tend to get a will or trust done right before leaving the country. They want to have their affairs in order in case something happens while they're out of the country.
Mhm.
Um, So address the children aspect of powers of attorney, having the ability to speak on their behalf.
Absolutely. So I can even attest to that as well. Went off to college, went to Purdue, and that was the first time I realized my parents did not have access to my report card or my health records, right? So
Yeah, but you had access to their money, didn't you?
yeah, absolutely. So it is a trade-off. So you can bargain, you
Right.
can negotiate. However, it is imperative to know what's going on with your child, as well as having the power to not only receive information, but to act on their behalf when needed, right? So that goes to not only the healthcare aspect, but also the financial aspect, which is a financial power of attorney. So say for instance, your child is in the hospital or your parent is in the hospital and they can't take care of their bills, right? Because you're in the hospital. Let's say you have an extended stay, let's say it's 30 days. That rent is due, that mortgage is due, um, utilities are due, phone, everything is due, but you don't have access to be able to pay those things because you don't have the proper documentation to receive that information. So that leads me to not just the healthcare power of attorney, but the financial power of attorney as well. These two documents operate while individuals are living. There are different types. I usually prefer durable powers of attorney. That means they're active while the person is competent, and it survives when they become incompetent. So say for instance, I have a financial power of attorney over Mr. Liddell, and it's durable. So it's in effect as soon as he signs it. He goes into the hospital for some given reason and he's out of it. It's still in effect versus what's called a springing power of attorney. Most people that are giving power to their children over them, like springing powers of attorney, because what it does is it allows the person to only have power in the event I become incapacitated. So
So
that's
it's
huge.
almost like saying a superhero. When something happens, the superhero springs into action.
Yes.
So spring. So think of it from that perspective of they take action, but only then can they
Hmm.
take action. They spring
Right.
into action.
In the moment you become capable again, they no longer have that power. Okay. So that is a very useful tool in the time of emergencies. And when you cannot act on your own behalf, you have to have someone to act on your behalf. Otherwise, you can go to court and they will appoint someone for you. I'm pretty sure everyone has been reading the news lately, and it was a crazy front page case. We don't know if it's true. We don't know any of that nature, but people being appointed over individuals' estates and spending money, and they're not related to that individual whatsoever. I don't put
All right,
names in
Miss Sanders.
cases.
Got it. Miss Sanders, can you read the comment that was just put in there?
Good afternoon, good evening, Attorney Sturgill. The question that we have in the chat says, must you have an attorney's assistance to acquire the power of attorney or the financial power of attorney?
Mhm.
There, see, somebody's already trying to knock you out your money.
No, that is an excellent question.
Do we need it?
Um, the for I will say for the healthcare power of attorney, sometimes your hospital system that you use has specific documents that you can use for them, right? But it may not be a universal document that you can use for the insurer, the hospital system, and any other doctor that's outside of that hospital system. So you'll want something drafted that is more holistic in its approach. For financial powers of attorney, I wouldn't trust a general document because there will be specific powers that you may want to grant to a person and specific powers that you may not want them to be able to have. Case in point, I want a person to be able to pay my bills, but I don't want the person to be able to sell my house. If you just get a generic document, it may grant them powers that you're unaware of and that you're not thinking about and haven't contemplated that may be detrimental to you at the end of the day. And I see
Okay.
that it's another question. Does the POA apply to married couples? So the power of
Mhm.
attorney, you can grant anyone you want power of attorney over you. It does not have to be your spouse. It does not have to be your child. It does not have to be your attorney. It could be anyone you so choose to have and grant that power. And you do not have to have the same person as your healthcare advocate as your financial advocate. Okay? Those can be two
Okay.
distinct individuals.
Okay, so you've talked to us about the medical power of attorney, the durable power of attorney. What are some other documents or other parts of the estate planning process?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So, with that, we have the powers of attorney piece. That's why you're living. Now you have documents that go into effect when you pass, and they can also be living as well, but documents that really take effect when you pass away. So, those two documents are a will and a trust. So, a trust survives while you're living as well as when you die, but a will really springs into action when you pass away. What is the difference between a will and a trust is a pretty common question that I receive daily. So a will only, like I said, only springs into effect upon your death, and it forces you to still go through probate court. If anybody has been
Hmm.
through probate court, you know it takes a lot of time, a lot of money, and you don't always get the result, the intended result that the person actually wanted. Case in point, I'll give you an example of a client. They said their mother told them, there's three heirs, three children. Their mother told them
Okay.
this specific person is supposed to have the house. This specific person is supposed to get the ring.
That's
This specific person is supposed to get the car. what happens when all those things are not written down? It goes through probate court, and the state, the great state of Michigan. We just had a State of the Union address, state of Michigan address.
Yeah,
What was that, yesterday or so?
yeah.
And they already have an estate plan for you if you don't create your own. And that estate plan is to divide everything equally among your heirs. So, mind you, if it's a spouse involved, that spouse gets everything up until $250,000, and then it's split between the children, if those children are not generated through that specific marriage. So it's not a lot of different caveats when it comes to not having a plan in place.
So in
So
other words, if
Okay,
I'm an
so let's,
outside, hold on, Miss Sanders, I got it. So if I'm an outside child, I might be in trouble.
as I say, you're playing with fire.
And
I
I
see it
had
all the
nothing to
time.
do with being an outside child. Hey,
Hmm.
Miss Amos asked a good question. If you're married, and a lot of people need this one cleared up, if you're married, do you have to have a power of attorney on your spouse?
If you want to access documentation that is specific to them and you're not on that account, then yes.
Right.
Most institutions will not release information if you are not on that person's account or records.
Right. Even when you go to the hospital, they prefer that even if you're married to a person, they prefer that you have a power of attorney. That as you stated, the healthcare advocacy.
Hmm.
What was the
even
document
in
called
finance.
that you mentioned? Attorney, what was the document you mentioned for the
Oh,
healthcare?
patient advocate designation.
Patient advocate designation.
So say for
Right, Miss
instance,
Sanders?
you are on um, a ventilator. How long do you want to be able to remain on a ventilator on life support? Is it
Yeah, I
one
remember
day? Is it
one
seven
of my
days?
friends, yeah, one of my friends said that he gonna be that miracle person that comes back. Other people say if they got to keep me alive on a ventilator, then you know let me go.
Hmm.
So everybody has a feeling about that. So you might want to speak to your spouse, significant other, person that about how long you want to be kept alive. If only the machine is keeping you alive, they tell you that your brain dead, as they used to say, and that your brain is no longer telling your body what to do. You're not telling your lungs to breathe. So those are tough conversations. Miss Sanders, you were about to say something. I jumped in when I could.
Well, I was going to make a side comment, but the chat is jumping. So I have some
Hmm.
questions to get out to Mr. Sturgill. So one of the questions says, how do you set up a trust? And that's from none other than Miss Mildred Gaddis. Welcome tonight.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Gaddis. So, um, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have been seeing a lot of advertisements about estate planning lately on social media. If you're on social media, it's just maybe I clicked on something and my feed has just turned into estate planning central. And I just see all this estate planning stuff. I don't know why I clicked on it. I shouldn't have clicked on it because now that's all I get. Um, but you can usually I like to use, of course, an attorney because it is a legal document and it's dealing with your assets and not only your assets, but your loved ones. So what do I mean by that? If you have minor children and you pass away, who takes care of your minor children? Who are you designating as their guardian? Who are you designating as their conservator? Those are real questions that affect the rest of that individual's life. But also your assets. What happens to your assets? And I don't know about you, but if I found something online and it was generic and this is talking about my greatest asset, my house, what's going to happen to it, I think I need a little bit more clarity on what will actually happen in the event I sign this document and create this trust without having any guidance.
Well, sometimes people are just, I'm going to use the word CH, I'm just going to call it cheap.
Cheap.
They just cheap. They don't want to spend the money, but then they spend it on probate or they spend it. Let me just say this here. I've had families come in, they sit with me, and we're talking about the money they have and who they're going to leave what. And my kids have never got into it. They've never fought each other. They get along. And Attorney Sturgill said it best: if you're the only child, no problem. But if there's two children, not mentioning 3, 4, or 5, that might be a problem, because you don't know what the children want, and if they don't get it. I had a case where that, and this is boy and a girl, perfect family, right? Boy and a girl. The girl was living here in Detroit area. The brother was living out of town. Because the daughter took them shopping, bought groceries, to the doctor, they left her $10,000 more than they left the son. And his interpretation of that wasn't that his sister was always there for mom and daddy. His interpretation was, I can't believe they loved her more than me and left her $10,000 more than they left me. So that was his interpretation. So he sued his sister. And they both spent over $80,000 on attorneys before he finally decided to drop the case. Now, he made a lot of money. He could afford to spend $80,000, but he wanted to use up as every penny that his mother left his sister in court. So don't think that people won't sue a brother or sibling, as we call it. They will. Miss Sanders, something else went in the chat.
Now, Attorney Sturgills, for these fancy trusts that you're telling us about, it comes with a will and a trust. Can you give us, kind of an average cost for a trust?
Oh yeah. So I'll give you an average cost for an estate plan, as well as if you don't plan, right? So
Okay.
if you don't plan, that's probate. You're going through probate. If you do plan, you're probably in a trust, some type of will, some type of power of attorney. So for the 4 documents that we discussed tonight, generally the cost starts around $2,500. And what does that look like? That's for the most simple, most basic scenario. So say, for instance, you have a more complex scenario. Let's say you have a special
A
needs
special needs
child.
child. There you go.
Uh, let's say you even have issues. Well, some people, I deal with same-sex marriages. I deal with the whole gambit of legal issues that may arise. So blended families, individuals that don't have any heirs, because you don't want your money to just go to the state just because you don't have any family members. And if you don't have any children, no parents, no spouse, you may not want your money to go to that cousin or that long lost cousin that just hit the jackpot because you passed away and you didn't do any planning, that you've never met in your life. So moving from that, if you're looking at no plan at all, how much does it cost if you have no plan at all? Generally, large estate probate cases start around $7,500, $9,500, $10,000. And that's if
And you
nobody
do
is fighting.
probate. You do probate, correct?
Correct.
So you'd rather get them early than to get them late.
Absolutely. And you'll rather have a trust to avoid probate altogether. Who wants to go to court? Who wants to be in court for an entire year waiting on what they know mom told me I'm going to have, or what they know
Mm-hmm.
dad told me I'm going to have? And that's a huge issue that's going on in the city of Detroit. And there's been quite a few council members that have been trying to fight the issue of estate planning, dealing with residents of the city that have grandma's house. They're living in grandma's house, but grandma's house is not in their name. And now the tax time comes and they forget to pay the taxes. I'll say pay the taxes, and they can't redeem the property because it's not in their name, right? So you don't even have the power to do certain things if your name is not on the deed, if you're not a part of probate, if you don't have a trust, you lose access to be able to protect those assets. And that's
Okay, let's
the greatest cost.
right. Let's use it as an example. All right. My biggest asset is my retirement account, an individual retirement account, and I have beneficiaries on it.
Mhm.
Uh, the house that I own, paid for, but in my house's case, basically, if everything I have is through beneficiaries except for my home, what do I really need a trust, or do I need to do something else with the one asset I can't just leave that way?
Hmm. So, some people like to explore what's called a ladybird deed in the event that their sole asset is a piece of real estate. What a ladybird deed does is it kind of operates like your 401k has a beneficiary attached to it. So it's like us creating a beneficiary to your property, your real estate, because otherwise, it will just, when you pass away, it goes to your estate if no one else is on the property. And what's powerful about a ladybird deed is it does not give a person a present interest or present power over your property. So it doesn't give them the power over your property immediately. It only gives them the power or the interest that you hold in the event that you pass away. Why is that big? Because if I put my child on my deed and, it's their childhood home, and I say, I'm ready to move, I'm ready to sell this thing and move to, a beach in Miami. I don't know. What happens if the child doesn't want to sign that document and I put them on my deed as a present interest holder? Now I can't sell my property, and that's a problem. But with the
Right.
Ladybird deed, you retain all that power. So if you want to sell the property, if you want to mortgage the property, if you want to refinance the property, you do not need anybody else's authority other than yourself in order to do that.
All right. So now the other big elephant in the room that we're not talking about is if you put a child on there and they're a good child. This is not the bad child. This is a good child. They're not going to sell your house. They're going to let you move to Miami if you want to, and they're going to agree to sell the house with you. However, there's a thing called cost basis. So upon your death, the house cost basis jumps up to the current value versus what you paid for it. So in other words, they won't have to pay taxes on the house current at the current level. So you bought a house for $30,000 50 years ago. The house is now worth $150,000. There's $120,000 appreciation in that value of the home. Now the child inherits that home without having to pay the difference in their cost basis. So that's one of the huge advantages of not putting them on there, along with what Attorney Sturgill said in terms of not agreeing that you can sell their childhood home, which makes it a big deal. All right.
And taxes have gone up enough, so who wants to
Yeah.
pay even more?
Right.
I think one of the other things that we're trying to get clarity on in the chat. So one of the comments says, so with no trust, they divide everything up equally to the children in Michigan. Can you explain that for them?
Mhm. So with no trust, well, I'm assuming that you're also saying with no will as well. So no plan whatsoever.
Mhm.
So you're going through probate. The first heir is always your spouse. Then it goes, if you're not married, it goes to your children. And all these assets are divided equally among whoever has that priority. So if it's a spouse, pretty much all the assets are going to that spouse, unless you have a substantial estate. Um, if no spouse, then it's going equally to the children, whether you like them or you're not, whether one needs more help or not, whether one is a millionaire and the other one has nothing, they still get everything equally, right? If you have no children, it goes to your parents. If your parents are not alive, it goes to your siblings. If siblings aren't alive, then it goes, it has a plan for every single level that you can think of, it's there. And if you have no one at all, no one at all, guess who it goes to? It's to say Big Gretch, the state of Michigan.
Okay.
What does the
Now,
state do with all that money? No.
Fix, no, no, fix the
fix
Fix
the
the
road.
road.
roads.
Fix the roads. Uh, okay, so we live in a time now where that there's first, there's second, there's third, there's fourth marriages. There's people who continue to get married. There's serial marriagers. They didn't mean to be. They didn't set out to be, but they happen to be.
Mhm.
So they have a spouse living in a house with them. They're the only name on that deed. The spouse lives in a house with them. What happens in that event? Even though they have grown children, What happens in that event? And Michigan's kind of special that way with dower rights. But you explain what happens to that. You got married to the lady, brought her home. I'm using a man. You brought her home 3 weeks ago and you died of a heart attack. Now what happens to your house?
I've seen that happen. So so your all those children through all those other marriages prior to, you probably they'll probably see nothing because that new spouse will be entitled to that lovely house. Um, and that will that person still have to go through probate? Yes, because their name is not on the deed. However, let's say it says John Smith, a married man, or something like that on the deed. So some title companies say, well, say a married man, you produce the certificate of marriage. Let's go ahead and sell this house. Let's approve it. Sometimes they don't, they skip through that process. But most of the time you go through probate and that new spouse, whoever is the current spouse, will be granted the property. Now you mentioned that, but I also
Yeah.
wanted to tell you about that
Okay.
one crazy case where there were 3 or 4 marriages, and the current wife was the husband had a lot of health issues, and she was taking great care of this man, the current wife. Now the wife before, she left because he was dealing with all these health issues. I mean, he's going blind to one eye, very diabetes symptoms. Think about diabetes symptoms, so things of that nature.
So what you're saying is she said, can't do it. I just can't
Can't
do
do
it.
it. Can't do it. Can't do it. So she left and moved to Florida, right?
Okay.
Comes back the week that he passes away, files an emergency petition in the court to say that we never got a divorce. The court says, the probate court puts this man on ice. He can't get buried. They cannot have a, well, they end up having a funeral, thank God, but he could not be buried. And he was in the I don't know what funeral home he was at, but he was there for about 3 or 4 months, maybe 5 months before we were able to get some type of resolve to get him even buried. Why did I bring that up? It's because had he had an estate, let's say he had a trust, all those assets are inside of the trust. She can't even touch those assets. Even if she petitions the court, all she has access to is what was left in his personal name. Okay. And the whole reason why she was doing that is because she said what I think occurred in her head. He had a pension, he had a retirement account, he had a house, and he got what's called a default judgment when he got divorced to her. So her whole game was, I was never served with the papers, and this is why the court even entertained it. I was
Mm.
never served with the papers stating that I was divorced. Even though I left, I haven't talked to this man. I haven't done anything with this man. I haven't visited him. No, no, marital rights. None of that. In 3 years, and over 3 years. But the court allowed this person their due process to be able to go through the court system to make their case heard. And that creates a lot of pain, a lot of headache, a lot of tension. And the craziest part, remember we were talking about those kids that were from the previous marriage?
Right.
Those weren't her kids. That was the first marriage kids.
Right.
They ganged up on the current wife.
Okay.
So it was just a
On the current wife, not the previous, not the wife who filed the petition.
mhm. So,
The
so they
current.
ganged up with the prior wife, the second
Oh
wife.
wow, to
They
go
were
after the
children
one.
from the first marriage. They came together because what they were trying to do is use the kids to get power over the estate and to set aside the divorce judgment. I know that's just thinking in my head. I was like, this is what they're trying to do. Because once a person has the power over the estate, it's as if they are you, the deceased person.
Correct. Correct.
Once you have the letters of authority, that says if Walter Stargell passes and Ms. Gaddis is my personal representative of my estate, she has to act, she has the power to act as if she is me. So she can sell my
Right.
property, she can sell anything that's in my name, she can access my bank accounts and things of that nature. She can sign judgment and enter into court cases on my behalf as if it is me. So they were trying to use the probate court to circumvent the family court.
Mm.
And it was a huge scheme. It didn't work. However, had we
Okay.
not acted in time, it could have worked. And that's a
It could
huge
work. So in this case, who
risk.
got the money?
The current wife ended up getting the
Okay.
money.
All right.
Yeah.
The current wife ended up, the one who was there at the end, took care of him, wiped his mouth, got the money. That was fair.
So,
That's fair.
Yeah. Miss
That
Sanders,
was
something
fair.
in the chat. Some
So,
clarity in the chat.
okay, before I get to a couple of questions, there's a comment in here that is pretty interesting. So Al Adams is saying, I want to know, you guys, Miss Liddell and Miss and Attorney Stargell, have you guys seen the movie called I Care a Lot? It's
I have.
about it's it's about uh, this lady that's scamming elderly individuals into getting guardianship or taking custody of all their assets and all that and selling their stuff. And so he made mention of that because of what we were talking about earlier. Well, yeah, it's called I Care a Lot. It's a good movie to watch for anyone, not just our seniors, but for anyone. Um, Next question says, can you discuss, I guess, the difference between the will and the trust? Well,
Yes.
not really the difference. Like, I think they're trying to get to, should I have a will as opposed to a trust? How do I know what's better?
I'll always say I'm always a belt and suspenders type of person. So what we do is with your estate plan, if you get a trust, you're also going to have a will. Your will is going to pour over any assets that you forget to put in your trust into your trust at death. What am I saying? Let's say you hit the Powerball for $300 million and then you die the next day. You did not put that ticket or those assets, those dollars into your trust prior to your passing. So now you have to go through probate in order to get those assets to pour it into your trust to ensure it's divvied up the way you intended, not the way the court intends. Um, a will is good if you are doing very limited planning and you like to go to court. If you don't want to go to court, you need a trust. If you want to avoid probate court altogether,
And
you definitely need
by
a
the
trust.
way, you're not going to be the one going to court. You're going to
Right.
be
What's
Right.
dead.
Your
You're not
heirs.
the one going to court.
family?
And one thing for sure, if it's even $1 involved and two people there, there's going to be a fight.
All right, Miss Sanders, you can
How,
go to the next thing. Oh, you
yep,
know what?
how
There's something there
often
about mortgages. Do I have to take my? Do I have to get? If I have a mortgage, I'll let you read it. If I have a mortgage on the house, do I have to take? What do I do to get it
do
into the trust?
got
But
it?
they mentioned the
Do
fact
you
that
have to have do you have to have a new mortgage on a house? Uh, who's on my
I got you.
right?
yeah,
Do
I
You
you
have
have
can't.
to
to have
have
a
a,
new mortgage
do you have
to
to do
have
a
a
new mortgage to put a
thank
house
you?
in a trust? The answer is
All right,
no.
you answer the simple question, and then I'll go into more detail.
Absolutely. I'll say no, but I always tell individuals to call your mortgage company prior to any conveyance to ensure that they will not trigger what's called an acceleration clause. An acceleration clause means, let's say you owe $500,000 on your house and your monthly payments are $5,000. If you convey that property to someone else or even yourself sometimes, what it would do is trigger the acceleration, so that whole 500,000 will become due on the date of that conveyance, and that's an issue that you would like to avoid.
Okay, so now, for those of you who already have a house in a trust and you decide I want to refinance it and do a HELOC, home equity line of credit, you have to take the house out of the trust, which an attorney can help you with, get the HELOC, and then put it back in the trust. Now, Michigan is a deed state, meaning that you actually have equity in your property, ownership, the day you close on that mortgage. So the day you close on the mortgage, and by the way, no shameless plug, there's ELE Mortgage Company. So we do have a mortgage company. We started it back in 2015. So mortgages is something that we also do. You don't have to take, you don't have to get a new mortgage to put the house in a trust, because your deed, you own that piece of paper you own is what you're going to put into the trust. And the mortgage company doesn't make you refinance for that purpose. All right, Ms. Sanders, next one.
Yep. How often should you review your will or your trust?
As often you receive money. No, usually I like to review things every other year. At least you should review what's going on. You should always know what's going on in your financial sphere, right? So a lot of people sometimes forget to update beneficiaries. You got married when you were young, you're still working the same job. You don't look at your retirement account. You look at the number, but you don't look at all the other assets. So, I mean, excuse me, all the other important details of it, such as the beneficiary. Um, I cannot change a beneficiary, right? So if you pass away and you have a beneficiary that you did not intend to have on that document, that's a problem. That's a problem that I can't even overcome because it's a contract and it goes directly to that individual. It doesn't even go through probate. Those assets do not touch probate. Anything with the beneficiary does not touch probate. Um, what's the other question? I'm sorry, I missed. I
That,
was going down a rabbit hole
and
there.
just to give me a little more detail, so how often would you recommend that we review our trust with an attorney?
Gotcha. Um, some people do it every other year. It just depends on how active you are in acquiring and divesting assets and if things are changing in your life. You have children, you need to update things. If you get
Okay.
married, you need to update things. If you get divorced, you need to update things. So generally there are, I think Mr. Liddell has it, there are every 7 years, there's major changes in your life that absolutely need to be addressed. You're entering to a new phase of your life every 7 years. I'll probably say for me it's like every 4 to 7 years the way my life has been going. It's been every year.
Yep. All right, so we got 2 more minutes before we wrap you up. And I'm sure Ms. Sanders has more questions in the chat. He will be back in the future when we do these. I will bring Attorney Sturgill back. And he answered some of the same things that Ms. Pegler said. Major changes in your life is when you get with an attorney. Now, there were some law changes in 2018 that triggered most people need to update their trust. So if you got one before 2018, you probably need to get the certificate of trust updated. You might not have to get the whole trust done, but at least the certificate of trust updated. So you just want to bear in mind that you want to keep your information current. Now, I know, and the next time you come on, we're going to talk about people who love their children at 65, but decide to disinherit them at 75 and 80. And the kids are looking at them saying, but you ain't the same person I loved at 65. So we'll do that next time. So give us some closing remarks.
Absolutely. For one, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that's as simple as it can get. Check out the movie that Mr. Adams indicated because it is a excellent. It's not only entertaining, but it's real life. Dealing with individuals' assets. People are not always honest, not always true, and as you all know, somebody always out there to get you. Lastly, if you need some assistance, we'll be happy to assist. We give complimentary first initial meetings. So we can sit down and talk about your specific issue. And even if you don't use us, we'll give you some good guidance and move forward. And I pray for everybody's prosperity and good health on this call tonight. And shout out to Mr. Wilson. He was a teacher at my school when I was a young buck.
See, he like age shaming us, Mr. Wilson. I don't know what that's about. Yeah.
Yes,
Nah.
yes. How you doing there, Brother Sturgill?
Bless
Yeah.
you, brother.
Yeah. If you could put your phone number in the chat for everybody to see. All right. On Sunday mornings, this lady and I like to hang out between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. Now, her show comes on at 8 o'clock and it goes through 11 o'clock, and she usually has something for you the whole time. And she recently just did a thing on Jesse Jackson just to kind of show the respect and the friendship she had with Jesse Jackson. Who am I talking about? None other than Mildred Gaddis. Miss Gaddis, unmute your mic and talk to us.
Good evening, and I'm happy to report, Mr. Liddell, that I got my invitation to the private service.
Okay, all right.
I just so we gotta figure something out, okay? Good evening, everybody. This uh Mr. Stargell, you should do open mic night some places sometime. You really giving us something to think about and at moments in a humorous way, and that's wonderful. I just want to say, oh, and Mr. Liddell just takes over my show. Have you guys noticed that? He says it's my show, but when he comes, you get it, right? He does, right? Um, he does. But I just want to say that, and I've said this before, and I keep saying it because I think it's important to remind people that it is really later than we think. The Bible talks about knowledge and what it will do, but it also talks about um, our responsibility to act on that knowledge that we know. We also have a responsibility to share. Procrastination is not anybody's friend, and it took me a long time to do the will, which is going to segue into a trust, because for me it was like I just felt like you're saying to God, "Okay, I'm checking in." you know, I'm not lying. I mean, I really procrastinated for a long time. Um, and I was always telling other people what they should do because they would ask and I had an answer for them, but I wasn't doing it myself. But when I finally did it, I for some reason I felt secure and I just forgot about it. I really did. I wasn't procrastinating anymore. And now is time to change and redo that thing. Um, and I've just completed a situation that cost me a lot of stress, not anymore. A friend who passed away recently, who decided that she was disinheriting her children. She was dying from MS, and they said to her, "We have our own families, and you're just too much for us." She got an attorney, and she disinherited them and did not want them to have anything of her. She said, "Don't give them anything in my house." And she was at total peace with that. She had been a mother who did everything for her children, and she did not expect them to treat her the way that they did. So the man at the funeral home asked me, he said, "Has she changed her mind? Is she really going to do this?" I said, "Yeah." And she was at such peace with it. I was amazed. She was at peace because she had been a great mother and she didn't deserve to be treated that way. And so she called two friends over 6 months before her death and said, "These are the things I want you to do for me. Do not put me in a nursing home." That was the main thing. She said, "I want to die in my own home." And when she took her last breath, she was at peace. And it was an interesting thing because her face just got as peaceful as she was in her mind and heart. um it's a different thing. And one of the things I learned through that process, Mr. Liddell, was that this hospice thing is a pretty good racket for some folk. um they say to you that you can't have hospice and have home care, and hospice will come in twice a week and give you drugs and spend with less than 2 hours, and that's it. And the drugs, of course, energizes your body to start to begin to shut down. Um, if you have money, if you have resources, um, you don't have to make that kind of choice. You can have both, but people rarely can have both because of the money that they do not have. It was such an educational experience for me. And Mr. Liddell um, forced me uh, about 20 years ago, 20, 21 years ago, to get an insurance that would do a whole lot of things for you. And I don't know if that kind of insurance exists anymore, but I'm
We still
saying, and
have
this is,
it,
I
Ms.
know,
Gaddis.
pardon
Yes,
me,
we still
it
offer
still
that
exists.
insurance to our clients. Yes.
Oh, great, 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 great. Um, because we just never know. A friend of mine's brother, in great health, 45 years old, ran every day of his life, had a heart attack, checked out, you know. Um, and then there were some issues. He wasn't expecting to die at age 45. So the first thing, before anything else is securing your life, the end of your life. Because when you have resources, you can make your own choices. And when you do not have them, other people will choose for you. And trust me, people always operate in their own best self-interest. Um, we get all of this knowledge, and I think that we're just not moving on it as fast as we ought to move. It can be intimidating until you find out that it really isn't. But not knowing is what makes you intimidating. And we've been having seminars for years. Um, the world keeps changing on us. And the good news is, those of us who prepare for it, we're okay. We're not stressing out. It doesn't matter who's president or what that president does, we're going to be okay. And because we have the knowledge, there's no reason for any of us to find ourselves in that situation. Think about this for a minute. We are doing better than our parents in most cases, our grandparents, their parents, and they did far better with less than we're doing with the resources that we have now. So as Mr. Liddell has said, all of these years, wealth is our legacy, and we're supposed to pass it on. But we have to do the right thing. And again, um, it's later than we think. It really is. And I'm grateful to Mr. Liddell, um, because I was not interested in I was always going to do my business later. I was going to do it tomorrow. And I woke up and, Mr. Liddell, do you realize that I started doing the right thing at 50? At 50. And I'm just amazed and grateful for what has happened to me, my life, because I've been disciplined enough to do what was necessary. And I admire you guys because some of you every month you're here. You're here. I don't know what everybody's doing with this knowledge that they're getting, but if you're not doing the right thing, um, move and move quickly. You go to the experts because they know what they're doing. They're disciplined. And with all of the success that ELE Wealth Management has had and continues to have, you're in the right place. You're in the right place. Um, and I just want to encourage you to do the right thing with it. And thank you, Mr. Liddell. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, Miss Gaddis and I again, 105.9, 105.9 every Sunday morning, except for when she's out of town or I'm out of town, but then we have something for you even then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you, Miss Gaddis, and attend that funeral on behalf of all of us, and I know you'll be there to represent all the things that he did to make a difference in our
Yeah.
world. Yeah,
Right.
and
Thank you.
thank you for that. All right. So, in the last 5 minutes, I just want to talk about a lot of things that have happened this past week. The big thing to me was the State of the Union address. As a financial advisor, I watched it, and I watched it with the intent of knowing where to invest your money as we go through the rest of the 3 years that President Trump has in office. So, the things he talked about were the things that I know that are going to do well because that's where he's going to put his focus, put his energy. So moving you all, speaking of energy, the energy sector is one of the things that he mentioned in his speech. So listen to the speech from the perspective of investing. That's so important. I think the biggest challenges we face in trying to do everything right is to slow everything down and to take our time and make sure that we're doing everything to keep our family going in an onward, upward trajectory, because that's what's so important, is to make sure that our children's children will benefit from our labor. Many of us work very hard for everything that we have, and we don't want to see it just disappear in one generation. We want to make sure that it's around, because the Bible tells us to leave a legacy for our children's children. And there are different ways to accomplish that. People come to my office all the time and they ask, what's the cheapest way for me to leave a legacy, Mr. Liddell? And I tell them, it's life insurance. The cheapest way to do it is through life insurance. But you got to pay the premiums. So that's important, to make sure you have enough income coming in to constantly pay the premiums. Now, the other thing, people come in, they say, is there something else I can do? I say, yeah, you can leave my house that's debt free. So keep in mind, the payment you pay on your mortgage is a minimum payment. It's not a maximum payment. It's a minimum payment. So with a minimum payment in mind, you want to make sure that if you can afford to pay your mortgage off in 10 years, don't take 30 to do it. If you have the extra money, and we all have extra money. They say people beg for what they need and they ask for what they want. Or is it the opposite? Beg for what they want, buy what they need. No, it's the opposite. They beg for what they want. They buy what they feel they need. What they feel they need, not necessarily what they need. One of the things about one of the families, I read a book recently about the Gullah tribes in South Carolina. And the Gullah tribes took a long time before they were freed as slaves. And one of the Gullah children said something that became historic. Ain't I got a right to the tree of life? Ain't I got a right to the tree of life? We all have a right to the tree of life. It doesn't just happen by accident. If you want to become wealthy, you have to actually plan to become wealthy. What is wealth? Wealth varies for everybody involved. Wealth looks different. For some people, wealth is $1 million. For others, 10 million. For some, wealth is peace. Wealth is health. Wealth is joy. Wealth is having somebody who you know loves you back. So wealth is something that we all need to grasp and hold on to, but we have to define what wealth is for ourselves. I thank you all for joining us on the last Thursday of the month, and we're gonna do this again in March. Same place, same station. And I look forward to seeing each of you then. We will talk more about things that affect you and your legacy. Thank you. Have a great evening.